Today is a day that we celebrate the working class of the world, and we celebrate the working class here in Sri Lanka. But today, we witnessed a sight of people standing in the rain to collect a 5,000 rupee concession that has been handed to them in these troubled times. These are the working people of Balapokuna Road in Kirulapana. Money talks, that's what the world believes, but now the world has come to a standstill. And looking back for the leaders of the world and the leaders of our country, it's not very hard to recognize the importance of the working class in the world and here in Sri Lanka. The working class are the people who contribute to the sustenance of the country as well as to the development of the country. Now, on this May Day, while the leaders of our country have something to think about, there is something for the working class to think about as well. Of course, we have been suffering with the COVID-19 pandemic, the outbreak, and the country has come to a standstill. And when people get back to work in a few more days, they will have to work extra time. They will have to put in double the effort to get our country back on track with the rest of the world. We've seen many slogans on May Day rallies across many years that we've seen these slogans being chanted in rallies. But this time around, the slogan of the working class of Sri Lanka should be "Rise Up, Sri Lanka."
President pledges that he will not let the lives of laborers be disrupted. Investigations are underway into the videos containing threats uploaded on social media by a group of children. Distribution of the 5,000 rupee allowance hampered today as well. Opposition to highlight the need to seek the determination of the Supreme Court regarding reconvening Parliament and the financial powers of the President.
Taking a look at the stories in detail now. First, an update on the curfew situation in the country. Curfew in the districts of Colombo, Gampaha, Kaluthara and Putlam will continue to remain in effect until the 11th of May. Curfew for the other areas in the country will be lifted at 5 a.m. on the 4th of May and will be reimposed at 8 p.m. on the same day. Island-wide curfew will be in effect from the 6th of May until the 11th of May. Normal activities of citizens and institutions will be allowed to commence from the 11th of May despite curfew. Now in an update on the COVID-19 situation here in the country, the number of COVID-19 cases rose to 689 today. 507 of them are receiving treatment at hospitals. 3 patients recovered from the viral infection today, bringing the total number of recoveries to 157. 145 people suspected to have contracted the virus are under medical observation. Today is International Labour's Day, and on this May Day celebrations, unlike previous years, the celebrations of this day this year were limited due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The streets of Sri Lanka remained relatively empty, and no political parties in Sri Lanka held May Day rallies today.
President Gotabaya Rajapaksa issued a special message for the International Workers' Day. He assured that the lives of the people will not be allowed to grind to a halt, even in these challenging times. In his message, the President said that the coronavirus will be defeated with the help of the working people. The President said that he takes this opportunity to honor the working people of the country for their countless sacrifices. Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa, in his message, honors members of the health sector, triforces, state employees, and the working people of the country. The Prime Minister points out that although marches and meetings that demonstrated the workers' strength and unity are not taking place, we have a way of demonstrating our strength and unity. He adds that this can be done by giving the encouragement and assistance of the working population to those battling to eradicate the pandemic by following the rules laid down by health authorities. He went on to note that the COVID-19 pandemic is bringing into question the viability of the open economic system accepted by the world so far, and added that it is also teaching us that Sri Lanka too should change the economic policy followed by us so far. Former opposition leader Sajith Premadasa also issued a special statement. The entire country must make up their minds to move forward under a new system. Health, welfare, happiness, relief and reconciliation will be part of this new economic pattern. I am happy to state that we will soon create an era where the working people will be uplifted. We will do all that we can to safeguard the working community in this country. Former Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe also expressed the following views to mark May Day. I request the government to take 3 steps in order to safeguard the working people in the country. Provide relief to fulfill their daily needs without any political influence. Protect all large and small-scale businesses to create job opportunities in the country. The reality is, the entire world will have to continue with their lives amidst the COVID-19 outbreak for at least a year. We should understand this reality. Let us all understand that coronavirus is our common enemy. I invite all factions, including the working people of the country, to get together in defeating the coronavirus. The Sri Lanka Freedom Party commemorated the May Day by paying tribute to T.B. Ilangaratne, who pioneered in declaring the May Day a holiday. After the 4th, the country will be freed from these restrictions to a certain extent. Our most important challenge will be to uplift the country. It is the working community that will strengthen us. The Janata Vimukti Peramuna commemorated May Day via social media. The failed capitalism must be defeated. A new society with an objective of strengthening the people must be created. We invite Democrats and the working people across the globe to come together in creating a new society.
The 27th memorial of former President Ranasinghe Premadasa is commemorated today. Ranasinghe Premadasa commenced his political journey as a councillor of the Colombo Municipal Council and eventually was elected the 2nd Executive President of Sri Lanka. His entrance into national politics comes amid a myriad of difficulties. Upon a request made by Dudley Senanayake, Ranasinghe Premadasa joined the UNP and contested the general election in 1956 from the Ruanvalla electorate against a serious contender at the time, Dr. N.M. Pereira. In March 1960, Ranasinghe Premadasa was elected into Parliament. Unfortunately, he did not manage to repeat the same feat twice, as he was defeated at yet another general election which was held in July of the same year. In 1965, he embarked on a victorious journey and was appointed the Prime Minister under the first Executive President of the country, J.R. Jayawardena, in 1978. In 1977, Ranasinghe Premadasa, who possessed the gift of the gab, carried out an extensive campaign spanning the length and breadth of the entire country to muster support for the UNP in order to secure a 5/7 majority. Even under an executive president, Ranasinghe Premadasa spearheaded many innovative programs to provide welfare to the people. Prime Minister Premadasa resolved the housing issues of the people through projects such as the Udagammana program and the Model Village program under the Samata Sevana concept. The United Nations declared the year 1987 as the International Year of Shelter for the Homeless, based on a concept put forth by Ranasinghe Premadasa. He was elected the 2nd Executive President of Sri Lanka on the 21st of December 1988 and wasted no time in furthering his service towards the people. A major promise made by him prior to being elected the president was fulfilled when he took steps to send back troops of the Indian peacekeeping force. In a bid to alleviate poverty, President Premadasa commenced the Jana Savya program while introducing a program to provide school children with breakfast in order to create a well-nourished future generation. He also appointed a youth assessment commission to address the issues in the country at the time, subsequently deciding to select those who only pass competitive examinations to government posts. Taking into account the recommendations made by the Youth Assessment Commission, he introduced the proportional representation electoral system to afford minority parties a better opportunity to enter Parliament. In his endeavour to eradicate youth unemployment, Premadasa moved industries into villages and expanded garment factories beyond investment promotion zones. His timeless decisions are providing jobs for the youth of the country even today. Premadasa also transitioned the country's economy, which was reliant mostly on traditional export crops such as tea, coconut and rubber, into one which relies on industrial products and even encouraged local businesses. President Premadasa implemented all these programs and more for the welfare of the country amid many obstacles. Ranasinghe Premadasa, a visionary leader who was steering the country towards development, was assassinated in Armour Street, Colombo on the 1st of May 1993 while preparing for a May Day parade. Although Ranasinghe Premadasa's life met with an untimely end, his legacy and the yeoman service he extended to Sri Lanka's citizens continues to live on. Floral tributes were presented to the statue of the late President Premadasa in Alutkade by members of his family. A special event commemorating the late president was also held at the Gangaramaya temple in Hunupitiya, Colombo.
Ranasinghe Premadasa understood the pulse of the common man and formulated an economic policy favourable to the country. His journey was plagued with obstacles. However, he was elected the executive president. He woke up at 4 a.m. each day. He followed the teachings of the Buddha. He abstained from consuming alcohol.
In line with the 27th memorial of former President Ranasinghe Premadasa, Sajid Premadasa today donated medical equipment to the National Institute for Nephrology, Dialysis and Transplantation. Now, with the COVID-19 outbreak here in Sri Lanka, certain concessions were announced by the government. What is the status of these concessions? Are they really going out into the general public? We'll be back with those news and more on the other side of this short commercial break. Stay tuned.
Does your business belong to one of these marketing communication industries? The Market Research Society of Sri Lanka invites you to join a Marcom initiative to estimate the total value of the industry with the aim of engaging the government. WhatsApp 076 887 0757 to receive the registration link.
Welcome back to the news. Now, the distribution of the 5,000 rupee allowance by the government continues to be marred with many issues.
People who are residing in boarding houses at the Talvatta Grama Seva division in Kalaniya, who claim that they have not received the 5,000 rupee allowance, were asked to hand in their appeals today. The people claim that none of them have received the money as of yet. An uneasy situation arose between these people and officers who accepted these appeals.
Their allowance will be delivered to the people who have submitted their appeals. We will log their names on our registers. Their money will be given to them in 2 days. The money will be given to the people whose names are in these registers. Anything else is not relevant. Don't do this just because you are not good in terms with state sector officials. You can do what you want.
Who is she? That is our question. Is she a state sector official? The official over there said that the person who took the money has disappeared. Thereafter, police officers attached to Kalaniya police station arrived at the location.
We are people of this country, regardless of where we come from. The relevant official has to come and do this. When you give it to the villagers, they will discriminate the other villagers. We are boarded and have no way of going home. We have given the appeals. They did not accept them. We went today as well.
We have given more than 3 appeals by now. We have nothing to eat since we are living in boarding houses. We do not have anyone to lend us money. As we have nothing to do, we came here. They say that they will cut our names from the list because we spoke to the media. How can they cut out our names like that?
In more local news now, Sri Lanka has printed 6.55 billion rupees this week, pumping a total of 115.62 billion rupees into the market in April.
The government has printed 223.64 billion rupees so far this year, among which 220.4 billion rupees had been printed after the COVID-19 virus started spreading since March 13th. Sri Lanka continues to deal with an economic crisis after the Treasury bill auction to raise 30 billion rupees this week also went undersubscribed, with 23.3 billion rupees coming from investors. The CBSL noted government securities, which stood at 78.01 billion rupees on March 12th, have skyrocketed to 298.38 billion rupees as of April 30th. A $62 million auction of Sri Lanka development bonds too went undersubscribed last Wednesday, with only bids worth $18 million coming from investors.
Sri Lanka's headline inflation declined slightly in April due to the statistical effect of the high base and the decline in festival demand for non-food items due to the lockdown-style curfew.
The central bank in a statement observed that headline inflation, as measured by the Colombo Consumer Price Index, declined to 5.2% in April from 5.4% in March. The central bank noted, quote, monthly change of CCPI recorded at 0.1% was due to price increases observed in the items of the food category, unquote. The CCPI measured on an annual average basis increased marginally to 4.8% in April from 4.7% in March, its highest since October 2018. The statement added that although core inflation, which reflects the underlying inflation in the economy, increased to 3.1% in April from 2.9% in March, the annual average core inflation declined to 4.7%.
The Consumer Affairs Authority has approved an increase in the price of local milk powder, matching it with prices of imported ones. Accordingly, the price of a kilo of local milk powder has been increased to 945 rupees, while the price of a 400-gram packet has been increased to 380 rupees. The price of imported milk powder remains unchanged. Now, politicians in Sri Lanka continue to debate on the possibility of conducting an election and also on the possibility of reconvening parliament. Here are some of the views that were expressed.
What will be the outcome of convening the 225 members to Temple Trees? We would like to know what their objective is. Is it to obtain the opinions of these political parties? Or is it to find solutions to the constitutional issues they are facing? I don't think these issues will be resolved by convening the 225. There will be no point in gathering 225 members at Temple Trees. There is a constitutional crisis and the government must provide answers to it. If it is by reconvening the parliament, it should be done. That is their decision, but a constitutional crisis is in the making. A solution can be found only either by convening parliament or by seeking the determination of the Supreme Court. Summoning the members to Temple Trees will not solve this issue. According to the Constitution, there is no requirement to convene Parliament. It has been stated that there is no requirement to do so. The President has responded to this request by saying there is no need to convene Parliament. According to the Constitution, the President has all provisions. The National Election Commission has been given the authority to hold elections. Our responsibility is to save the country from COVID-19. The government now wants to hold the elections at any cost, even if it means holding the elections over dead bodies. It is because the government understands the gravity of the issue they are about to face. The government does not have answers to the economic crisis and the difficulties faced by the people. Their only option is to sell all the assets of the country as the previous government did. So they want to hold the elections immediately, because if they postpone it by 3 more months, they will not be able to obtain the number of votes they did during the previous election. They know that. The President has been vested with the power to spend money from the consolidated fund during 2 time frames. Firstly, the President has the power to draw money from the date of dissolution of Parliament until the new Parliament convenes. Secondly is the period of up to 3 months from the date that the new Parliament convenes. The President has full authority to spend money from the consolidated fund during both these periods. The 3-month time limit on convening Parliament is not applicable here. The President has the power to draw funds from the date of dissolving Parliament to when whenever the date on which the new parliament would convene, and also 3 months from the date the new parliament is convened. The other countries anticipating to help our country will not want to help us. They will lose confidence in us. Don't create another crisis from this. The main intention of convening parliament is to uphold democracy in the country. Both sides say different things about the constitution. What should be done then? What should be done as a leader who respects democracy? He has to go to the Supreme Court and obtain an explanation on the constitution. I'd like to clearly state that we have not received money from any country yet. The President believes that there is no need for a parliament right now because these have to be carried out transparently. The party leaders will meet with the Prime Minister. All members of the parliament will meet the Prime Minister on Monday. They can question if we have received money then, or if they have any questions about providing relief. What can the parliament do? Convening the parliament itself is a risk. The biggest virus in the country is wanting to hold elections, but they deceived the people by saying the opposition wanted an election. What must the government do? They should get the required beds with the money they received. Tell the people what your plan is. All they talk about is an election. The government is afraid they will not be able to obtain a 2/3 majority. If we go on to hold the election when the situation settles, as the World Health Organization says, we will have to wait for another year. The previous government held elections when around 500 to 600 people died owing to dengue. Only 7 have died so far. All positions must be given to Bandula Gunawardena. He has said that around 500 to 600 people have died in the year owing to dengue, and that this is not as crucial as that. This shows what kind of a cabinet Sri Lanka has. I won't be surprised. They must be giving the 5,000 rupees now because he said that people can live with 2,500 rupees. So think about it. The coronavirus is a global pandemic. It is highly contagious.
ඒක නොතේරෙන මිනිහෙක් ඉන්නවනම් කැබිනට් එකේ ඒක නම් සම්ප්‍රකාශක කියන්නේ ඩෙන්ගු වලින් 500ක් මැරුණා ඒ නිසා කොරෝනා ගැන එහෙම බය වෙන්න දෙයක් නැහැ කියලා මොන තරම් ඔල මොට්ටලෙක්ද.
The debate on whether the election will be held amidst the current situation is rife. The Prime Minister had convened all the members of the dissolved Parliament for a meeting at the Temple Trees on Monday. The Prime Minister's office confirmed the 224 former MPs, excluding the Prime Minister, were invited for Monday's meeting. The Prime Minister's media division noted that topics ranging from the steps that have been taken to restore normalcy in the country to defeat COVID-19 and the current situation will be discussed at this meeting. Meanwhile, leader of the JVP, Anurakumara Disanayake, had addressed a letter to the Prime Minister. The JVP leader says while the meeting has been called to discuss matters pertaining to combating COVID-19 and addressing the consequential effects of the pandemic, it is only the Parliament which is vested with the constitutional right to discuss regarding such matters. Thus, the JVP does not view a meeting held at the Prime Minister's residence to prove useful in addressing these matters. In his letter, Anurakumara Disanayake further notes if all 225 former parliamentarians are being invited to the Prime Minister's residence to discuss regarding the constitutional issues which have arisen, such as inability to access state funds after the 30th of April 2020 and the inability to convene a new parliament within 3 months of the dissolution of an old parliament, holding such a discussion would not provide solutions to such matters. Listing down 2 possible options for the constitutional issues to be resolved, the leader of the JVP said the President should declare a state of emergency as per the Constitution and reconvene the Parliament. Seeking the assistance of the Supreme Court on which course of action should be followed during a crisis such as this. Anurakumara Disanayake in his letter to the PM has informed that the JVP will not be attending the meeting.
These are the issues our politicians have, but the issues faced by our farmers are drastically different from the issues our politicians are facing. These farmers in Alahara are requesting for fertilizer to make ends meet. Farmers are preparing to plant paddy in 400 acres and additional crop in the Yalla season under the Bedum Ala Farmers Association. According to them, they have received 215 kilograms of urea per 1.5 acres in the last season. But this season, they have only received 204 kilograms of urea in total. They have received 55 kilograms of TSP fertilizer last season, but only 25 kilograms this season. We cannot cultivate with 25 kilograms. We ask for sufficient fertilizer to cultivate, or else impose a controlled price and send them to shops. Then we can purchase them from these shops. Now there is no fertilizer to be brought from shops. The government gives the fertilizer for free, but we do not receive an adequate amount. These farmers are not asking for free fertilizer, but when they are urging the government to provide them with fertilizer, even at a cost, shouldn't that be looked into? This field is located near Pol Atumodara stream in Velipitiya Matara. However, the farmers here are unable to get water from this stream for their fields. They have to rely solely on rainfall. The farmers say that water can be easily accessed if an anicut is built across the stream. What's unfortunate is that we cannot get the water from the stream that is right next to the field. We have to wait until it rains with the stream right next to us. As there is no viable solution provided for this issue, the farmers have to wait until it rains to restart their lives.
The policy formulators of the country could have prevented such issues from affecting the farmers through a few timely policy decisions that they should have made. The same goes for rural industries. People have been forced to abandon the pottery industry in Uwa Paranagama Valimada as they are unable to acquire the raw material needed for the industry. Also, there is no demand for their products. About 100 families in Uwa Paranagama are involved in the pottery industry.
If we had a market where we could sell these products, we could have taken these products to the people. It would have been good if we can have a place to sell these products to the people.
We need clay, hay, wood, coconut husks. We don't even have money to buy these raw materials. We don't even have a way to sell these pots. They now look to the authorities for answers on how they can survive in this industry.
There is a lot of focus on the impact of the COVID-19 virus on rural and small-scale industries, as well as people who are self-employed. But the large-scale industries, the driving force of the economy in the country, are also facing unprecedented challenges. Today, we focus on the construction and the shipping industries.
Sri Lanka's construction sector, which contributed about 9% to the GDP and was among the leading with a growth rate of more than 20%, is now suffering with a growth rate of 0. At present, with nearly 1 million people employed in both direct and indirect sectors confined to their homes, the construction industry is facing several challenges.
At the moment, 8.5 million people are at home. Maybe about 5 million people will get back their jobs, but about 3 to 3.5 million people are doubtful. So some industries cannot start immediately. More than 1 million people are working for our industry, and we are contributing around 8% now even to the GDP we were. And also I am requesting to the government of Sri Lanka all the local funding projects to be given to the local contractors and even the foreign funded projects. At least to 30 to 40% of the percentage to be shared by the local contractors. In this case, because the 5,000 contractors are there, even last few years, some people didn't have work for about a year to two. So we can do a fair distribution of work to all these people. We need the government support to reach some of the payments goes to the construction industry. We know over 100 billion rupees. If you start paying them at least a portion of the money, we can restart our project and we can serve those companies can survive.
Among the many industries that have been affected by COVID-19, is the worldwide logistics sector. The pandemic has caused a drastic decline in cargo movement worldwide, while lockdown restrictions in many countries have affected the container transshipment business at Sri Lanka's Colombo port. The government has several import restrictions amid the sharp rupee depreciation, which has also impacted the export industry, which heavily rely on imported raw material.
We have seen a 75% dip in exports in April as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. We have also experienced a dip in transshipment volumes due to the lockdown in India and Bangladesh. Imports also saw a dip due to the lockdowns in India and other countries. The biggest issue is the piling up of import containers in the port of Colombo, as the consignees were facing constraints in clearing cargo due to curfew, lack of labor, lack of transport, funds, inability to get documents through banks, and the limited working hours of shipping lines, customs and other authorities.
About 60% of our labor market is working in the informal sector. But what we have to remember is actually this informal sector and the micro and small medium enterprises are connected to the big formal sector and the big private sector. For an example, if you take a look at the construction industry, about 500 to 600,000 people are working in the construction industry, formally and informally, but most of these employment are connected as supply chains for the big companies. It is same in the export sector. If you look at the export sector, the packaging, the transportation, all the value-added services are connected to the formal sector and the big private sector, though they are in the informal sector.
Third episode of the webinar titled Post-COVID-19, The New Normal, with eminent panelists including Keith Modder, Chief Operating Officer and Managing Director at Virtusa, Jeevan Nyanam, Co-founder Hatch, Founder Director Orion City, Lahiru Patmalal, Founder of Takas.lk, and Chandra Jayaratna, former Chairman of the Ceylon Chamber of Commerce. Moderated by Nero Cook, Group Director, the Capital Maharaja Organization Limited. On Sunday, the 3rd of May at 6 p.m. on TV1.
We've been receiving a number of inquiries on how the curfew situation in the country would be in the coming days as well as in the coming weeks. Here's a look back on what was said in the communique issued by the President's Media Division. Now, the curfew in 4 high-risk districts of Colombo, Gampaha, Kalutara and Putlam has been extended until the 11th of May. Now, issuing a statement, the President's office noted that the curfew in the other districts of the country will be lifted at 5 a.m. on the 4th of May and will be reimposed at 8 p.m. on that day. Now, this will continue until the 6th of May. And on the 6th of May, curfew in the country will be imposed at 8 p.m. This will be an island-wide curfew. And this curfew in the country will continue to be in effect until 5 a.m. on the 11th of May. The President's office said that public and private sector companies in the high-risk districts of Colombo, Gampaha, Kalutara and Putlam can resume operations on the 11th of May. Accordingly, private companies can resume operations at 10 a.m., while employers can choose the number of workers who should report to work. The statement notes that public transport services will limit operations only to commute employees to work. Moving on in more local news, multiple investigations were launched today after videos showing children threatening each other began circulating on social media platforms. Newsfirst has decided to refrain from broadcasting the visuals of these children as they could provoke more incidents of a similar nature.
The National Child Protection Authority has also commenced investigations into the incident. We launched an investigation into this matter this week. We have blocked those videos. We have also directed our divisional child protection officers to assess the mental health conditions of these children by visiting their homes. The police has taken them into custody. If any adult had provoked these children or assisted them to film these videos, we hope to arrest them as well. Founding chairman of the National Child Protection Authority, Professor Harendra Silva, pointed out that children have been tempted to commit acts that are unsuitable for their age, as adults too have been posting similar content on social media. At first glance, one can assume that this is a joke and that children are doing such things as they are bored these days. People who make such assumptions are not aware of the mentality of these children. These are incidents of psychological abuse. These are extremely dangerous. Those involved in filming these videos and releasing them to social media platforms should be considered as abusers. Meanwhile, Vijay Sena Vithana, a consultant to the National Child Protection Authority, said that the existing laws need to be updated in order to combat cybercrime in the country. If the laws relating to child abuse as specified under Sections 6 and 9 of the Computer Crimes Act are amended, the existing regulations can be strengthened. There is potential to take more action under the current laws. I believe that the relevant authorities will be motivated to do so. Dr. Meeru Chandrasena, a child and adolescent psychiatrist, said that children become isolated from their families as a result of being forced to engage in acts that are inappropriate for their age. These children are posting such videos to gain popularity on social media by attracting more likes. Through this, they also gain attention among their peer groups. Children seek attention in an unnecessary manner if they are not guided properly or if their parents do not associate closely with them and understand their feelings. A child will have very low levels of self-esteem if an environment is not created at home to develop their minds. Children who have high self-esteem will not seek popularity through dangerous means.
A child connected to the incident has been taken into the custody of the Criminal Investigations Department. According to the police media spokesperson, SP Jalya Senaratne, that child has been taken into custody in Pannala. He further added that investigations are underway to identify the other suspects related to the incident. The Indian government has said that the nationwide corona lockdown will be extended by 2 weeks after the 4th of May.
The Indian Home Ministry has also issued new guidelines to regulate different activities in this period based on the risk profiling of the districts of the country into red, green and orange zones. The government said that there will be considerable relaxations in the districts falling in the green and orange zones. Under the new guidelines, a limited number of activities will remain prohibited throughout the country, irrespective of the zone. Travel by air, rail, metro and interstate movement by road will remain banned. Schools, colleges and other educational and training, coaching institutions, hospitality services including hotels and restaurants, places of large public gatherings such as cinema halls, malls, gyms and sports complexes will also remain shut. The government will also not allow social, political, cultural and other kinds of gatherings and religious places and places of worship. Movement of people by air, rail and road will be allowed for selected purposes and for purposes as permitted by the Home Ministry. India witnessed its biggest jump in coronavirus-linked deaths today with 77 deaths over the past 24 hours. At least 35,365 people have tested positive for coronavirus and 1,152 people have died due to the virus.
Now, an update to a previously aired story regarding children posting violent videos on social media platforms. We reported that a child who was connected to the incident had been taken into custody of the Criminal Investigation Department. An update to that story: 4 more children who posted violent videos on social media have been taken into the custody of police. Now, according to the police, these children were taken into custody to ensure their own protection. For the protection of the children, these children have been taken into police custody. In total, there have been 4 students who have been taken into police custody for posting violent videos on social media. Moving on in more news, the World Health Organization has warned countries around the world must be prepared for a second or even a third wave of the coronavirus outbreak until a vaccine is available.
Head of the WHO in Europe, Dr. Hans Klug, said Europe remains very much in the grip of the pandemic. Despite positive signs, it was passing the peak. He added, quote, COVID-19 is not going away anytime soon, unquote. It comes after the University of Oxford announced it was partnering with pharmaceutical giant AstraZeneca for the development, manufacture and large-scale distribution of the COVID-19 vaccine candidate currently being trialled in the UK. On the 29th of April, the WHO convened a meeting of vaccine manufacturers and national regulatory authorities from its Southeast Asia region. At the virtual meeting, leading manufacturers from India, Indonesia and Thailand discussed timelines and production capacity, while regulatory bodies deliberated on adjustments that would be needed in processes to make COVID-19 vaccines available at the earliest. The launch of the initiative comes in the wake of a UN General Assembly resolution through which member states called for all countries to have equitable, efficient and timely access to any future vaccines developed to fight COVID-19. India, Indonesia and Thailand are among the world's largest vaccine manufacturers.
The number of global confirmed COVID-19 cases has surpassed 3 million. And the vast majority of these cases will recover, but there is a lag between an infection being noted and the recovery being confirmed.
Singapore has recorded another 932 new infections for the past day, bringing the country's total to more than 17,000. The vast majority of new cases have for weeks been among foreign workers who mostly work in construction and housed in large dormitory complexes, which now are under quarantine. New infections among locals are often in the single-digit range. Spain's health ministry said Spain's coronavirus death toll rose as 281 more people died from the causes related to the disease overnight. The previous day's death toll was 268. A convention center in Madrid used a makeshift hospital during the crisis closed as all patients were discharged. Spain is currently in the first phase of a 4-phase plan to lift the lockdown that would culminate in a return to normality by the end of June. People across the United Kingdom join in a round of applause to thank the NHS staff and key workers on the front line of the coronavirus crisis. The applause has become an emotional weekly ritual in Britain since it first took place on the 26th of March. The government is likely to get very close to or meet its target of 100,000 daily coronavirus tests. It comes as the Prime Minister said the UK was now past the peak out of the outbreak. He also stated that to avoid the disaster of a second peak, the UK must keep the R rate, the number of people to which one infected person will pass the virus, below 1. Russian Prime Minister has been diagnosed with the coronavirus. He said during a video meeting with President Vladimir Putin. Russia confirmed 7,933 new coronavirus infections, bringing the country's official number of cases to 114,431 and marking a new one-day record increase. Russia is now the 8th most affected country in the terms of infections, having surpassed China and Iran this week. Moscow's coronavirus lockdown has also been extended until the 11th of May. The deputy mayor said Moscow is setting up 44 temporary hospitals which will treat up to 10,000 coronavirus patients. Prime Minister Scott Morrison said that Australian authorities would bring forward consideration on whether to relax the coronavirus-related mobility restrictions until the 8th of May, as the growth rate of new infections slowed. Morrison followed a National Cabinet meeting, urged Australians to download an app aimed at tracing contacts of COVID-19 patients, saying it was a precondition to relaxing the containment measures. Australia's least populous state, Northern Territory, was the first in the nation to lift major coronavirus social measures today. The Northern Territory government lifted the social gathering limitations for non-contact sports, wedding and funerals and open public parks and pools. The state has had 28 confirmed cases, but none have been attributed to the community transmission.
The United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres says he has been quote-unquote shocked but not surprised by the global response to the COVID-19 pandemic.
Yes, I mean, it's dramatic to see so many people dying, and it's dramatic to see this devastating impact on economies and societies, especially on the most vulnerable people. But not surprised, because unfortunately, what is true is that the world was not able to come together and to face COVID-19 in a articulated, coordinated way. Each country went with its own policy, different countries with different perspectives, different strategies, and this has allowed the virus to spread, and we would need, and I made that proposal to the G20, the need to have a mechanism of coordination of the international response in which all countries would have complementary strategies and act both in cracking down on the COVID-19 and in the strategies to exit and to reopen and then to recover.
Who do you blame for that? Are you talking about the great power rivalry between the United States and China, this propaganda war that has erupted since COVID-19 became a pandemic?
I think it's obvious that we lack a leadership that can only be possible if the key countries in the world, the key powers in the world, are able to come together and to have a common strategy, and then to bring with them the whole of the international community. This is a tragedy, but it could also be an opportunity to rebuild differently.
The Negitemu Sri Lanka theme song was created to inculcate a positive mindset within the people of Sri Lanka, and it has managed to do that over the past few months. Now we leave you tonight with the Negitemu Sri Lanka song. Thank you very much for watching Prime Time News. I'm Charlotte Benedict for the News First team with our interpreter for tonight, Tarka Gabriel. Thank you very much, take care, and God bless.
Saka sangka badak aterin Negitemu Sri Lanka. Hitamu idiri amai kawan wahana Negitemu Sri Lanka. Hitai devana navalokaya hamuve Negitemu Sri Lanka. Negitemu Sri Lanka. Api Negitemu Sri Lanka. Sida nuvenas minisat guna piripun